Taijin pressed his face against the cold window of the transport ship. Stars moved past him like tiny diamonds in the darkness. He had never been this far from home before. His hands shook a little as he thought about his new job. First time. In deep space? Asked the pilot, a friendly creature with blue skin and 4 arms. Yes, Taijin said. I'm going to work at Harmony's Edge Research Station. The pilot's smile disappeared. Oh, you're going to that place. What do you mean? The pilot looked around, then whispered, That's where they watch the human. Taijin felt cold fear run down his back. Everyone knew about humans. They were the monsters of the galaxy, the destroyers. The killers who ate worlds and left nothing behind. There's still a human alive, Taijin asked. One, the pilot said. Down on the planet below the station. They keep it locked away, but it's still there, still dangerous. The rest of the trip passed in silence. Taijin looked out at the stars and wondered what he had gotten himself into. 3 hours later, Taijin stood in the docking bay of Harmony's Edge. The research station was huge. Built from white metal that gleamed under the artificial lights, other researchers moved around him, all different species from across the galaxy. Some had fur, others had scales, and a few looked almost like him but with different colored skin. You must be Taijin, said a voice behind him. He turned to see. A tall, thin creature with pale green skin and large black eyes. The being wore a white lab coat with a name tag that read Dr. Minho, Senior Researcher. Yes, sir, Taijin said, trying to sound brave. Welcome to Harmony's Edge, Minho said. I'll show you around and explain what we do here. They walked through clean white hallways lined with windows that showed the planet below. It looked brown and dead, with no green plants or blue oceans, just empty land that stretched as far as the eye could see. What happened to it? Taijin asked. The humans happened, Minho said. His voice was hard. They came here 50 years ago. They built cities and factories. They took everything they could from the soil and the water, and they fought a war with each other and destroyed what was left. They stopped at a large window that looked down at the planet. Taijin could see the ruins of a city in the distance. Broken buildings reached up like broken teeth. The humans killed everything, Minho continued. Plants, animals, even the air became poison. Then they all died or left. All except one. One human is still alive. Yes, we call her Subject H1. She lives in the ruins down there. Minho pointed. To a section of the dead city. She's been there for 20 years. Why don't you... ... Toggle quotes. Taijin didn't finish the question. No, Minho asked. The Galactic Council won't allow it. They say we must study her to learn how to prevent future human infestations. But we all know what she is. A monster. Killer waiting for her chance. They walked to Minho's office, which was filled with books and computer screens. Pictures of different planets covered the walls. Some showed beautiful worlds with green forests and blue seas. Others showed dead, empty rocks. These are before and after pictures, Minho explained. Before humans arrived and after they left, this is what they do. They destroy everything. They touch. Taijin looked at the pictures. The dead worlds looked terrible, but something bothered him about the images. Couldn't say what. Your job, Minho said, is to watch the human and write reports about her behavior. We need to understand how they think and act. Maybe that will help us spot the next human invasion before it's too late. How many humans are left in the galaxy? Taijin asked. Not many. The Galactic Council has been very successful in finding and stopping them. But a few might still be hiding out there. Minho's eyes grew dark. They're like a disease, Taijin. They spread and destroy everything healthy and good. Minho gave him a key card and a small device that looked like a tablet, so we'll let you access the monitoring systems. You can watch the human from the safety of the station, but remember, never go down to the planet. Never make contact. Humans are dangerous beyond imagination. That night, Taijin sat in his small room and read files about humans. The reports were scary. They told of wars that lasted for years, of cities burned to nothing, of whole species wiped out by human weapons. Humans were described as violent, greedy, and without mercy. But there were also strange things in the files. Some reports mentioned humans who saved other species from danger. Others talked about human art and music that was beautiful. Few even said humans could be kind and gentle. These positive reports were marked as unreliable or propaganda. The official conclusion was always the same. Humans were monsters who could not be trusted. Taijin put down the files and looked out his window at the planet below. Somewhere down there, the last human on this world was living alone in the ruins. What was she doing right now? Was she planning to escape? Was she building weapons? Was she waiting for other humans to come and rescue her? Or was she just trying to survive? The next morning, Taijin went to the monitoring room. It was dark, except for the glow of many screens. Dr. Nari, another researcher, was already there. She had red fur and sharp teeth that showed when she talked. "You're the new human watcher," she said. "I'm Nari. I've been studying the monster for 5 years." "What is she like?" Taijin asked. "Sneaky dangerous. She moves around a lot, but always stays near the ruins. You think she's looking for weapons or trying to build a communication device to call for help?" Nari showed him how to use the monitoring systems. Cameras hidden around the ruins could track the humans' movements. The screens showed different views of the dead city and the area around it. "There," Nari said, pointing to one screen. "There. She is." Taijin looked at the screen and saw his first human. She was smaller than he had expected. The files made humans sound like giants, but this one looked normal-sized. She had long dark hair and wore simple clothes that looked like they were made from scraps. She was walking through the ruins, stopping sometimes to look at things. "What is she doing?" Taijin asked. "Probably looking for supplies or weapons." Nari said, "Watch her hands. See how she moves. Like a predator hunting prey." Taijin watched the human on the screen. She did move in a smooth, careful way. But she also looked sad. Lonely. She kept looking up at the sky as if she was hoping to see something there. "Has she ever tried to escape?" Taijin asked. "What?" "Where would she go? The planet is surrounded by our ships, and there's nowhere to run down there. Just empty land and poison water." The human on the screen sat down on a piece of broken concrete. She pulled something from her pocket and ate it slowly. Then she looked up at the sky again. "She's been alone for 20 years, Taijin asked. "Yes, good thing too. One humans are pack hunters. One human is dangerous, but a group of them is deadly." Taijin watched the human finish her food and stand up. She walked to a pile of rubble and began moving pieces of concrete and metal. It looked like hard work, but she kept at it. "What is she building?" Taijin asked. "We don't know. Something dangerous, probably. That's why we have to watch her all the time." As the day went on, Taijin learned more about the monitoring systems. There were cameras everywhere around the ruins, motion sensors that could detect the human from miles away, even devices that could listen to sounds from the planet's surface. But despite all this technology, nobody really knew what the human was doing or thinking. She was a mystery wrapped in fear and old stories. That evening, Taijin sat alone in the monitoring room. The other researchers had gone to dinner, but he wanted to watch the human a little longer. On the screen, she was still moving rubble. Working by the light of a small fire, as he watched, Taijin began to wonder about the stories he had been told. This human didn't look like a monster. She looked like someone who was trying very hard to survive in a very difficult place. But then he remembered the pictures of dead worlds and the reports of human cruelty. Maybe that was how monsters worked. Maybe they looked normal until they showed their true nature. The human on the screen stopped working and looked directly at one of the cameras. For a moment, Taijin felt like she was looking right at him. Her eyes were dark and tired, but they didn't look evil. They looked human, and that, Taijin realized, was what scared him most of all. 3 weeks had passed since Taijin arrived at Harmony's Edge. Every day he watched the human on the screens. Every day he wrote reports about what she did. Every day he grew more confused. The human who the files called Subject H1, but who had a name tag on her shelter that read Hannah, did not act like the monster everyone said she was. This morning, Taijin sat in the monitoring room with his cup of hot tea. On the main screen, Hannah was working in what looked like a garden. She had cleared away rubble and broken glass to make a small patch of dirt. Green plants grew there in neat rows. How is that possible? Taijin asked himself. According to all the reports, the planet's soil was poisoned. Nothing should be able to grow there. Dr. Nari walked into the room, carrying her own breakfast. "Still watching the monster?" she asked. "She's growing plants," Taijin said, pointing at the screen. Nari looked and made a disgusted sound. "Probably. Something dangerous. Humans are known for making poison plants into weapons. But why would she need weapons? She's alone. Humans always plan for war," Nari said. "It's in their nature. They can't help themselves." Taijin watched Hannah pick some small green leaves from her plants. She ate them slowly, like they tasted good. Then she picked more leaves and put them in a small bag. "Where is she going?" Taijin asked. On the screen, Hannah walked away from her garden and into the ruins. She moved carefully between broken buildings and piles of metal. After a few minutes, she stopped near a collapsed wall. "Zoom in on that area," Nari said. Taijin pressed some buttons, and the camera moved closer. Behind the collapsed wall, they could see movement. Small creatures with 6 legs and soft brown fur were hiding in the shadows. "Velkrins," Nari said. "I thought they were all dead." Velkrins were native to this planet. They looked like small deer but with 6 legs and big eyes. The reports said they had all died when the humans poisoned the planet. But here were 3 of them, alive and moving around. Hannah approached the creatures very slowly. She held out her hand with some of the green leaves. The Velkrin stepped back. "Afraid she's trying to catch them," Nari said. "Humans eat anything they can find." But Hannah didn't try to catch the Velkrins. She put the leaves on the ground and moved away. Then she sat down and waited. After a long time, one of the Velkrins came forward. It sniffed the leaves, then ate them. Soon, all 3 creatures were eating the food Hannah had brought. "Strange," Nari said. "Why would she feed them instead of catching them?" "Maybe she's trying to make them trust her," Taijin said. "Then she can catch them later." Hannah's actions looked gentle, not like a trap. The next day, Taijin watched Hannah go to the same place. Again, she brought food for the Velkrins. This time, they came to her more quickly. One of them even let her touch its soft fur. "She's definitely planning something," Nari said, when Taijin told her about it. But Taijin was beginning to wonder. I'd been reading more files about humans, including some very old ones from before the war. These older reports described humans differently. They talked about humans who cared for animals and plants, humans who helped other species. Of course, these reports were marked as unreliable or propaganda. The official story was that humans were destroyers. On the 4th day, something different happened. When Hannah went to visit the Velkrins, she found one of them lying on the ground. He was breathing hard and making small crying sounds. "It's hurt," Taijin said, watching the screen. The injured Velkrin had a deep cut on its leg. Blood was soaking into its brown fur. The other 2 Velkrins stood nearby, making worried sounds. Hannah knelt down next to the hurt animal. She looked at the wound carefully. Then she went back to her shelter and returned with a small bag. "What is she doing?" Taijin asked. Hannah took out some cloth and a bottle of water. She cleaned the Velkrin's wound very gently. The animal tried to move away, but Hannah made soft, calming sounds. She wrapped the clean cloth around the leg like a bandage. "She's helping it," Taijin said. "Impossible," Nari said. "Humans don't help other species. They use them." But on the screen, Hannah was clearly trying to heal the injured Velkrin. She gave it extra food and stayed with it for hours. When night came, she built a small shelter to protect all 3 animals from the cold. The next morning, the Velkrin was walking again. It was still limping, but the wound looked better. Hannah checked the bandage and gave the animal more food. "I don't understand," Taijin said. "Why would she help them? What does she get from it?" "Maybe she's experimenting on them," Nari suggested. "She's testing human medicine or something." But Taijin was starting to think that maybe, just maybe, Hannah helped the Velkrin because she wanted to help, because she cared about it. This was a dangerous thought. If humans could care about other creatures, then maybe they weren't the monsters everyone said they were. Over the next week, Taijin watched Hannah do more strange things. she fixed. A broken pipe that brought water to a small pond. Fish lived in that pond, tiny silver fish that somehow survived in the poisoned water. Hannah could have caught and eaten those fish, but instead, she made sure they had clean water to live in. She also started building something new. It looked like a fence, but not the kind that keeps things in. This fence seemed designed to keep things out. Specifically, it kept out the larger predators that sometimes came near the ruins. She's protecting the Velkrins, Taijin realized. There were dangerous animals on this planet. Shadow prowlers with sharp teeth and claws. Rock hunters that could crush bones with their powerful jaws. These predators had survived the planet's poisoning by eating anything they could find. But Hannah's fence kept them away from the area where the Velkrins lived. She created a safe space for the small, gentle creatures. That makes no sense, Nari said when Taijin told her about it. Humans don't protect other species. They destroy them. But that's what she's doing, Taijin insisted. Look at the screens. She's protecting them. That afternoon, Taijin discovered something else. While reviewing old camera footage, he found recordings from earlier weeks. Before he had arrived at the station, before he had started watching carefully, the footage showed Hannah doing things that had been happening for months, maybe years. She had been taking care of the Velkrins for a long time. She had been growing plants and fixing water pipes and building shelters, and one old recording, Taijin saw something that made him stop breathing. A group of 6 Velkrins was trapped under a fallen wall. They were crying for help, but they couldn't get out. Hannah worked for 3 days straight to move the heavy stones and metal pieces. She barely stopped to eat or sleep. Her hands got cut and bloody from the sharp rubble. But she didn't give up. When she finally freed the trapped animals, she was exhausted. She sat on the ground and cried, not from sadness, but from relief and joy. The Velkrins gathered around her, nuzzling her with their soft noses. Why? Taijin whispered to himself. Why would she do this? Official reports said humans only cared about themselves, were selfish and cruel. They took what they wanted and destroyed everything else. But Hannah had worked for 3 days to save animals that couldn't help her in any way. She had hurt herself to help them. She had cried when they were safe. That night, Taijin couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about what he had seen. Everything he had been taught about humans said they were monsters. But everything he had observed about Hannah said she was something else. She was alone on a dead planet. But she wasn't just surviving. She was trying to help other creatures survive too. She was trying to bring life back to a world that had been destroyed. But if the reports about humans were wrong, what did that mean? If Hannah wasn't a monster, then what was she? And more importantly, what did that mean about the other humans who had been hunted and killed by the Galactic Council? Taijin stared out his window at the planet below. Somewhere down there, Hannah was, probably sleeping in her small shelter, surrounded by the animals she protected. Tomorrow, she would wake up and continue her work. She would tend her garden, care for injured creatures, and try to heal a broken world. She would do this even though no one would thank her, even though no one would ever know, even though the galaxy had decided she was a monster who deserved to die, for the first time since arriving at Harmony's edge. Taijin began to wonder if the monsters weren't the ones living on the planet below. Maybe the monsters were the ones watching from above. Taijin stood in the supply room, his heart beating fast. In his hands, he held a small bag filled with medical supplies, seeds, and tools. Knew what he was about to do was against all the rules, but he couldn't stop himself. For 2 weeks, he had watched Hannah struggle with broken equipment and limited supplies. Her medical kit was almost empty. Her tools were falling apart, and her small garden needed better seeds to grow stronger plants. This is for research, he told himself as he walked to the transport bay. I need to see how humans react when they find unexpected resources. It was a lie, and he knew it. But it was the only way he could make himself do what felt right. The transport bay was empty. Most of the other researchers were asleep or working in their labs. Taijin climbed into a small shuttle and programmed it to fly to the planet's surface. The computer asked for his authorization code. Research mission, he typed, studying human behavior patterns. The shuttle's engine started with a soft hum. As they flew toward the planet, Taijin looked down at the brown dead landscape below. In a few minutes, he would be on the same world as humanity's last monster. He landed the shuttle far from Hannah's settlement, in a place where the cameras couldn't see him. The air outside smelled strange, not quite poison, but not clean either. He put on his breathing mask and walked toward the ruins. The edge of the restricted zone was marked by old warning signs. Danger, human contamination area, do not enter. The signs were faded and bent, but their message was clear. Taijin stepped across the line. The ruins were bigger than they looked from space. Broken buildings stretched in all directions. Some were just piles of rubble. Others still had walls, and empty windows that stared at him like dead eyes. He found a place where Hana often walked, a path between two collapsed buildings. He put down his bag of supplies and hid behind a nearby wall to wait. 3 hours passed before he heard footsteps. Hana appeared around the corner, carrying a container of water from her garden. She stopped when she saw the bag. Taijin watched her carefully. This was the first time he had seen her without looking through a camera screen. She was smaller than he expected, and thinner. Her clothes were patched and worn, but her eyes were bright and alert. She approached the bag slowly, looking around. For danger, when she opened it, her face changed. She pulled out the medical supplies first, then the tools, then the seeds. Her hands shook as she examined each item. "Who left this?" she said out loud. Her voice was quiet and rough, like she wasn't used to speaking. Taijin held his breath. He wanted to answer, but he didn't dare. Hana looked around one more time, then picked up the bag and walked away. Taijin waited until she was gone, then returned to his shuttle. That night, he watched her on the monitoring screens. She had laid out all the supplies in her shelter and was examining them carefully. She read the labels on the medical bottles with tears in her eyes. "She's planning something," Dr. Nari said, when she saw the footage the next morning. "Those supplies will help her build weapons or communication devices." But Taijin watched what Hana actually did with the supplies. She used the medical cream to treat the wounded leg of an old Velcrin. She used the tools to fix her water collection system. She planted the seeds in new rows in her garden. She didn't build weapons. She didn't try to send messages to other humans. She used everything to help herself and the animals she cared for. A week later, Taijin left another bag of supplies. Timey included some food from the station's kitchen and a small solar battery to power her equipment. When Hana found the second bag, she did something unexpected. She left something behind in return, a small wooden carving of a Velcrin. It was beautifully made, with tiny details carved into the wood. "She's trying to communicate," Dr. Kung said, when Taijin reported the carving. Dr. Kung was the station commander, a serious man with gray fur and sharp yellow eyes. "This could be dangerous. She might be trying to make contact with other humans." Taijin didn't think the carving was dangerous. Thought it was a gift, a way of saying thank you. He kept the carving in his room and looked at it every night. The third time he had left supplies, something went wrong. As Taijin was returning to his shuttle, he heard a terrible roaring sound. Shadow prowlers, 3 of them, moving fast toward the settlement. Shadow prowlers were the planet's most dangerous predators. They were twice as tall as a human, with black fur and claws like knives. They hunted in packs and could kill almost anything. Taijin's blood turned to ice. The shadow prowlers were heading straight for the area where Hana kept the Velcrins. He ran back toward the settlement, forgetting about staying hidden. Through the broken buildings, he could see the shadow prowlers surrounding the small pen where the Velcrins lived. The gentle creatures were terrified. They huddled together, making crying sounds. The shadow prowlers circled them, getting ready to attack. Then Hana appeared. She was carrying a long piece of metal, part of a broken pipe. It wasn't much of a weapon against 3 shadow prowlers, but it was all she had. "Get away from them," she shouted at the predators. The shadow prowlers turned toward her. They were much bigger than she was, and much stronger, as any sane person would have run away. But Hana didn't run. She stepped between the shadow prowlers and the Velcrins. "You want to hurt them?" she said, raising her makeshift spear. "You'll have to go through me first." The largest shadow prowler roared and charged at her. Hannah dodged to the side and struck it with her metal pipe. The creature howled and swiped at her with its claws, tearing her shirt and leaving bloody scratches on her arm, but she didn't back down. She kept fighting, even though she was hurt, even though she was outnumbered. Even though she could easily die, the second shadow prowler tried to get past her to reach the Velcrons. Hannah threw herself in front of it, stabbing with her pipe. The creature's claws raked across her leg, but she didn't stop fighting. For 10 minutes, she held them off. One human against 3 deadly predators. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, but she wouldn't let them past her. Finally, the shadow prowlers gave up. They were hurt too, and this small human was more trouble than they expected. They retreated into the ruins, leaving Hannah standing guard over the Velcrons. She was barely able to stand. Her breathing was heavy and painful, but she had one. Tae-jin watched from his hiding place, amazed. He had just seen a human risk her life to protect creatures that couldn't help her in any way. She had faced death to save animals that most people would consider worthless. This was not the behavior of a monster. This was the behavior of a hero. After the shadow prowlers were gone, Hannah collapsed. She was hurt badly and needed medical attention. But she was alone, with no one to help her, except she wasn't alone. Not anymore. Tae-jin watched her struggle to treat her own wounds with her limited supplies. She was weak from blood loss and pain. The cuts on her arm were deep and needed proper cleaning to prevent infection. One of the shadow prowlers had been wounded too. It was limping away from the settlement, leaving a trail of blood behind it. Hannah saw the injured predator. Instead of feeling happy that she had hurt it, she looked sad. She gathered some of her medical supplies and followed the creature. "Oh, what are you doing?" Tae-jin whispered. Hannah found the wounded shadow prowler hiding under a collapsed wall. It was hurt and scared. When it saw her coming, it tried to run but couldn't because of its injured leg. "I'm not going to hurt you," Hannah said softly. "I know you were just hungry. I know you were just trying to survive." She approached the dangerous creature slowly, holding out a bottle of antiseptic. The shadow prowler watched her with yellow eyes, confused. "This will help," she said. "I promise." It took her an hour to convince the shadow prowler to let her treat its wounds. When she was done, the creature looked at her for a long moment. Then it limped away into the ruins, moving easier than before. Hannah watched it go, then walked back to her settlement. She was exhausted and in pain, but she had saved both the Velcrons and the shadow prowler. Tae-jin returned to his shuttle with his mind spinning. Everything he had been taught about humans was wrong. They weren't monsters who destroyed everything they touched. They were protectors who would risk their lives to save others, even their enemies. That night he sat in his room and looked at the wooden carving Hannah had made. It was a beautiful piece of art created by someone who understood the value of life. He thought about the reports he had been writing. Subject H1 shows typical human aggression patterns, he had written. Continues to display predatory behavior toward local wildlife. All lies, all wrong. The real truth was that Hannah was alone on a dead world, trying to bring life back to it. She was protecting creatures that couldn't protect themselves. She was healing a broken planet one small act of kindness at a time, and the galaxy wanted her dead for it. Tae-jin made a decision. Tomorrow, he would break the biggest rule of all. He would make direct contact with humanity's last monster. He would talk to the woman who had shown him what courage really looked like. The next morning, Tae-jin stood at the edge of Hannah's settlement. His hands shook as he held a small translation device. This was the moment that could change everything or get him killed. "Hello," he called out in his own language. The device translated his words into human speech. "Please don't be afraid. I want to talk." Silence. Then he heard movement inside the largest shelter. Hannah appeared in the doorway, holding her metal pipe weapon. Her arm was still bandaged from the shadow prowler. "Attack!" But her grip was steady. "Who are you?" she asked. Her voice was careful and scared. "My name is Tae-jin. I work on the research station above your planet. I've been watching you." Hannah's eyes grew wide. She stepped back, raising her weapon. "You're here to kill me." "No," Tae-jin said quickly. "I brought you medical supplies. Remember the bags you found? That was me." She stared at him for a long moment. Why? Because I've seen what you do here. You're not what they told me you were. Slowly, carefully, Hannah lowered her weapon. What did they tell you? That humans are monsters. That you destroy everything. You touch. That you kill without mercy. Hannah laughed, but it was a sad sound. And what do you think now? I think they were wrong. For the first time, Hannah smiled. It was small and tired but real. Come inside. But move slowly. I'm still not sure I trust you. Anna's shelter was simple but well organized. She had books, tools, and medical supplies arranged neatly on shelves made from salvaged materials. Pictures drawn on paper covered one wall, all of them showing the Velcrins and other animals. You're an artist, Taijin said, looking at the drawings. I was a teacher, Hannah replied. Before the war, I taught children about animals and plants. War. Hannah's face grew dark. You really don't know, do you? Your people wrote the history books, but they didn't tell you the truth. She pointed to a chair made from scrap metal. Sit down. I'll tell you what really happened to my people. Taijin sat, and Hannah began to speak. Her voice was quiet but strong. 50 years ago, humans were explorers. We traveled to new planets and learned about different forms of life. We were curious about everything. New animals, new plants, new ways of living. But the reports say you were invaders. Some of us were, Hannah admitted. When humans found planets with valuable resources, some companies came to take those resources. It hurt the environment and the native species. It was wrong, and many humans tried to stop them. She walked to another shelf and picked up a small device. This is a data recorder, has the real history on it. The device projected images into the air. Taijin saw pictures of humans working alongside alien species. Humans teaching alien children. Humans helping to heal damaged ecosystems. But these aren't in the official records, Taijin said. It's because the Galactic Council didn't want anyone to see them. When humans started speaking out against the resource companies, when we started protecting planets instead of exploiting them, we became a problem. More images appeared. Now they showed human settlements being attacked by ships from different alien species. Humans running and hiding. Human children crying as their homes burned. The council decided we were too dangerous to live, Hannah continued. They said we were violent and unpredictable. They said we would eventually destroy the galaxy if we weren't stopped. So they hunted you. They hunted us. For 20 years, they tracked down every human settlement, every human ship, every human family. They told the galaxy it was for protection. They said they were saving everyone from the human threat. Taijin felt sick. How many of you are left? I don't know. It's maybe a few hundred scattered across the galaxy. Maybe less. Hannah's voice broke a little. Had to hide. We had to live alone and pretend we didn't exist. But why are you here? On this dead planet? Hannah walked to the window and looked out at her garden. This planet wasn't always dead. It was beautiful once, with green forests and blue oceans. Then the Corvani Mining Corporation came and stripped it bare. It took everything valuable and left poison behind. The mining company wasn't human? No. They were from the same species as Dr. Kyung, your station commander. When the planet was dying, they just left. But the damage was done. Taijin thought about the reports he had read. They all said humans had destroyed this planet. So you came here to heal it, Hannah said simply. That's what we do, what we've always done. When other species destroy planets for profit, humans try to fix them. She showed him more images from her data recorder. Humans working on different worlds, cleaning poisoned soil, replanting forests, caring for endangered animals. Always in secret. Always hiding from the council ships that hunted them. There are others like you. We're others. I don't know how many are still alive. We can't communicate with each other. It's too dangerous. Trace the signals to find the others. Taijin was quiet for a long time, thinking about everything Hannah had told him. Finally, he asked, Why did you tell me this? I could report you to the council, because you brought me supplies instead of weapons. Because you watched me for weeks and saw what I really do here. Because you risked your career to help me. Hannah sat down across from him. It And because I'm tired of being alone? You're not alone, Taijin said. You have the Velkrins. Animals are wonderful, but they can't have conversations. They can't share ideas or tell stories or laugh at jokes. I haven't talked to another thinking being in 20 years. The sadness in her voice made Taijin's heart ache. He thought about his life on the research station, surrounded by colleagues and friends. He couldn't imagine being alone for 20 years. Hey, what's your real mission here? He asked. Hannah stood and walked to a large map on the wall. It showed the entire planet with different areas marked in various colors. Green areas are where life has returned, she explained. Yellow areas are where the soil is still healing. Red areas are still too poisoned for anything to grow. Taijin looked at the map. The green areas were small, but growing. You're healing the entire planet by yourself. It's slow work. Maybe in another 50 years this world will be green again. Maybe longer. But every year more animals return. Every year more plants grow. Every year there's a little more life. And you'll spend your whole life here? Alone? If that's what it takes. Hannah's voice was firm. This planet deserves to live again. The creatures here deserve a chance, even if no one ever knows what I did. Even if the galaxy still thinks I'm a monster. Taijin looked at the map again, then at the medical supplies he had brought, then at the woman who had dedicated her life to healing a broken world. He thought about the reports that called her a monster and the colleagues who feared her. I want to help you, he said. You can't. If they find out you've been in contact with me, they'll arrest you, maybe kill you. Then we'll have to make sure they don't find out. Hannah stared at him. Why would you risk that? Because what you're doing is the most important work in the galaxy. Because someone should help you. Because... Wada, he paused, trying to find the right words. Because I've spent my whole life believing in lies. It's time I started believing in the truth. Hannah was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled, a real smile this time, bright and warm.
Ow.
There's a collapsed mine about 5 kilometers from here. She said, it's full of poisoned water that's slowly spreading underground. If we could build a filtration system, we could clean the water and help the soil heal faster. What would you need? Specialized equipment. Filters and pumps that I can't build with scrap metal? It would take months of work. Taijin thought about the supply rooms on the research station, about the equipment that was listed as experimental or surplus, about the ways he could slowly gather what she needed without anyone noticing. I can get you the equipment, he said, and I can help with the work. It's dangerous. If they catch us, then we'll be very careful not to get caught. Hannah extended her hand to him. Partners. Taijin took her hand and shook it. Her grip was strong and warm. Partners. Outside, a Velkrin called to its family. The sound was peaceful and happy. It was the sound of life returning to a dead world. And now, for the first time in 20 years, Hannah wouldn't have to do it alone. 3 months had passed since Taijin first spoke with Hannah. In that time, everything had changed. The poisoned mine was now clean, its water flowing clear for the first time in 50 years. New green plants grew along the stream banks. Young Velkrins played in meadows that had been dead-rocked before, but their secret was about to be discovered. Taijin sat in the monitoring room, trying to look normal as Dr. Nari reviewed his reports. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. Your observations have been very detailed, Nari said, scrolling through pages of data on her screen. But I noticed something strange. According to your reports, the human has become less active lately. She seems to be spending more time in her shelter, Taijin lied. Maybe she's getting sick. In reality, Hannah was busier than ever. They had started work on a new project, cleaning a contaminated lake that could provide fresh water for the entire region. But Taijin couldn't put that in his reports. Nari said, looking suspicious. Dr. Kyung wants to see you in his office. Now. Taijin's blood turned cold. Dr. Kyung was the station commander, and he didn't call meetings unless something was seriously wrong. The commander's office was large and cold, with pictures of different alien worlds covering the walls. Dr. Kyung sat behind a metal desk, his yellow eyes fixed on Taijin as he entered. Sit down, Kyung said. His voice was calm, but Taijin could hear danger underneath it. There have been some irregularities in the supply records, Kuhn continued. Equipment has been disappearing. Tools, filters, pumps, building materials. All items that could be useful for large construction projects. Taijin kept his face blank. I don't know anything about that, sir. Of course you don't. Kyung stood up and walked to the window that looked down at the planet. But here's what I find interesting. The missing equipment would be perfect for cleaning up environmental damage, and our sensors showed that the planet's recovery has accelerated significantly in the past few months. Maybe the natural healing process is speeding up. Kyung turned to look at him. Nothing about this planet's recovery has been natural. Someone has been helping it along. Someone with advanced knowledge of environmental restoration. Da, said nothing. The human is supposed to be isolated and monitored, Kyung continued, but I suspect she's had help. Help from someone on this station. The office door opened, and Dr. Minho walked in. Behind him came Dr. Nari and 2 security guards. We've been reviewing all the camera footage, Minho said. We found some interesting gaps. Times when certain cameras mysteriously stopped working. Always when supply shuttles were going to the planet, Taijin's heart pounded, but he tried to stay calm. Equipment malfunctions happen. Not this often, Nari said. And not always at such convenient times. Kyung sat back down at his desk. Here's what I think happened. You've been in contact with the human. You've been giving her supplies and equipment. You've been helping her with whatever project she's working on down there? That's impossible, Taijin said. The regulations clearly state. The regulations exist for good reasons, Kyung interrupted. Humans are dangerous. They're manipulative. This one has obviously convinced you to help her, probably by seeming harmless and friendly. She's not dangerous. She's been healing the planet. The words came out before Taijin could stop them. Everyone in the room went quiet. So you admit it? Kyung said softly. You've been in contact with the human? There's no point in lying anymore. Yes, I've been helping her. You fool, Nari said. She's been using you. Humans are experts at manipulation. They make you think they're harmless, then they strike. You don't understand, Taijin said. Hannah isn't what you think she is. None of the humans were what we thought they were. Hannah? Minho asked. You know its name? Her name? She's not Anne. She's a person who has spent 20 years alone, working to heal a planet that other species destroyed. Kyung pressed a button on his desk. Security. Prepare a strike team. We're going down to the planet to eliminate the human threat. No, Taijin jumped to his feet. You can't kill her. You've done nothing wrong.
Ow!
She's corrupted one of our researchers. Kuhn said that's enough. The council will be pleased to know we've finally dealt with this problem. The council lied to you, Taijin said desperately. Humans aren't the destroyers. They're the healers. They've been trying to fix the damage that other species caused. Impossible, Minho said. The historical records, false. Hannah showed me the real records. Humans were hunted because they tried to stop corporations from destroying planets. The council wanted them dead because they threatened profits. Kuhn stood up again. Even if that were true, it doesn't matter. The decision has been made. The human dies today. The security guards moved toward Taijin. He knew they would arrest him and then go kill Hannah. Everything they had worked for would be destroyed. The planet would slowly return to being a poisoned wasteland. Wait, he said. I have something to show you. Kyung held up a hand, stopping the guards. What data? Real historical records? Proof that humans weren't the monsters you think they were? You have 30 seconds. Taijin pulled out a small device, a copy of Hannah's data recorder. He activated it, and images filled the air above Kyung's desk. The images showed humans working peacefully with other species, human teachers in alien schools, human doctors treating sick aliens, human engineers helping to build cities that worked with nature instead of destroying it. This is propaganda, Nari said, but her voice wasn't as certain as before. Look at the dates, Taijin said. Look at the locations.
Yes.
This is all from before the war, before humans were declared dangerous. More images appeared. Humans protecting native species from corporate exploitation, humans organizing protests against mining companies that poisoned planets, humans being arrested for trying to stop environmental destruction. They weren't invaders, Taijin said. They were protectors. They were killed for it. Kyung stared at the images for a long time. Finally, he said, even if this is true, our orders are clear. All humans are to be eliminated. Then you're going to kill someone who has spent her entire life trying to heal a broken world. Someone who has brought life back to a place that was left for dead. The decision isn't mine to make, Kyung said. But Taijin could see doubt in his eyes. It is your decision, Taijin said. You can choose to follow orders, or you can choose to do what's right. The room was silent except for the hum of the station's engines. Everyone stared at the images that still floated in the air, proof that everything they had believed was wrong. Sir, one of the security guards said, we're receiving a priority message from the Galactic Council. Kyung pressed another button on his desk. A hologram appeared, an alien official with blue skin and cold black eyes. Commander Kyung, the official said, we've received intelligence that there may be more humans hiding on worlds throughout this sector. We're sending additional ships to help with the search. All humans must be found and eliminated immediately. The hologram disappeared. Kyung looked around the room at his staff. They're going to hunt down all the remaining humans, Taijin said quietly. People like Hannah who are trying to heal damaged planets. People who are doing the most important work in the galaxy. Our duty is to the Council, Minho said, but he didn't sound convinced. Our duty is to the truth, Taijin replied. And the truth is that we've been lied to. We've been used as weapons against the very people who could save us all. Kyung walked to the window and looked down at the planet below. In the distance, they could see green areas where Hannah and Taijin had worked together. Life returning to a world that had been given up for dead. What would you have me do? Kyung asked finally. Report that the human died of natural causes, Taijin said. Let her continue her work. Help me warn the other humans that more ships are coming. That would be treason. That would be justice. Kyung was quiet for a long time. Then he turned. To the security guards, escort Dr. Taijin to his quarters. He's to be confined there until further notice. Taijin's heart sank. They were going to kill Hannah after all. But as the guards led him toward the door, Kyung said something else. Make sure Dr. Taijin has access to the communication systems in his quarters. You might need to send some research reports to other stations. Taijin stopped walking. Kyung was looking at him with an expression that might have been a small smile. I understand, sir, Taijin said. That night, Taijin sat in his quarters and composed messages to research stations throughout the galaxy. The messages looked like routine scientific reports, but hidden in the data were warnings for any humans who might be listening. Environmental recovery, proceeding ahead of schedule, he wrote. Recommend immediate relocation of sensitive species to safer areas. In other words, run. They're coming for you. At the same time, he sent a message to Hannah. Research project complete. Please relocate specimens to secondary site for continued observation. Within hours, her reply came back. Understood. We'll establish new observation post. Thank you for everything. 3 days later, Kyung filed his official report with the Galactic Council. Human subject eliminated due to natural causes. Planet shows continued environmental recovery. Recommend continued monitoring. Hannah was officially dead. In reality, she had moved to a new location with enough supplies to start over. Somewhere in the galaxy, she was still working to heal broken worlds, and she wasn't alone anymore. Stations had received Taijin's warnings. Some commanders ignored them, but others began to ask questions. Other researchers started to doubt the official stories. The truth was spreading. Standing at his window, looking down at the planet where life was returning to lands that had been dead for 50 years, Taijin smiled. Humanity's guardians were still out there, still working, still healing the galaxy one world at a time. And now, finally, they had allies. The real monsters Taijin had learned weren't the ones who fought to protect life. They were the ones who fought to destroy it.